Hey everyone, it's Nikki and I am keeping it real. So I am actually solo by myself today. Kerri has had a meeting that she was already attending, so she's not going to be here. So we're going to switch it up a little bit and hopefully it works out okay. So I know in the past, Kerri has given you a market update about the rates and stuff. And since that's not my forte, I do real estate. I would like to go ahead and share my screen and talk about what I'm seeing on my end. So here we go. I hope everyone can see this okay. I'm gonna actually remove myself. Anyway, I hope that was some information, a little bit of benefit or more information for you. If you would like more information, you always feel free to reach out because we're always here to help. Again, Kerri is usually my partner in lending here. So she's not here today, but she is also available. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about buyer brokers because again, the buying season is starting to pick up. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about buyers brokers because there's been some stuff in the news lately and you know I like to keep it real, like I said. So I kind of like to talk about some of the stuff that maybe, people are wondering about. And it's kind of, sometimes you're talking to a broker and maybe you just don't want to ask this question. So guess what we're talking about today? You know why? Because we can. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and go on, and let's talk first of all about how hard a buyer brokers work for the buyers, because a lot of people say, we just go in, we set up our search, and then we go and open a door and walk them through. And that's what a buyer broker does. Well, it's not really that. Yes, we do those things, but we do a lot more behind that. What we do is we also we educate our buyers. I mean, as far as what the process is going to look like for them, we make sure that they are understanding what their options are as far as when they put in offers. We have connections, whether it's a lender, whether it's a home inspector. We're always, usually we're one of the first people that reach out. So we have a big network, and part of my job is to grow my network to make sure I have those people. So when my buyers or my sellers do need somebody, that I have somebody that I can have them call that's reliable and trustworthy. Also, I also really spend a lot of time doing a lot of research, and it's when a person goes to put an offer on a house or a property, one of the things that I do for my buyers is I will go, and it's kind of like working the opposite side of a seller. I will go in and do comps. Does this make sense? What have other ones that are similar to this sold for? Does this make sense? Are we offering too much? Are we offering too little? What price range makes sense? Obviously, it's going to be the buyer's decision on what they want to offer, but technically it really is, it's really what the market dictates. And we've been saying that for a long, long time on these broadcasts and stuff. It's really what the market dictates. So just getting those numbers and having that information at your fingertips is helpful. And that's something else I do a lot of. And then obviously we do a lot of negotiating for our clients, because, there's even more stuff coming up that's going to be all negotiable as far as what's coming up with the MLS and our new forms and stuff like that, which is part of the reason I wanted to do this broadcast today, because there are a lot of new steps and stuff like that coming up into our procedures that is going to give everyone a lot more rights, a lot more options of negotiating different aspects of different things moving forward. So some really positive changes are happening. I'm not going to go into all those today, because that's for another day, because it's a full long list. There's a 3-hour class that we're taking here soon. And I already had about two hours of another class doing the same thing. So anyway, a lot of information, a lot of really good information, but a lot of really positive things for our buyers and sellers both. So, and then, the other thing that I really do is to make sure that I'm really there to respond, to answer questions. I mean, I have clients call me all times, morning, noon, and night, and I really pride myself on responding back to them very quickly and getting them as much information as I can to help them make their decisions that they need to make as they're moving forward in that process. So it's really kind of being there step by step to do that. So that's what we do. And, and then I hear out, I'm not talking like, oh, you guys get paid so much. Well, guess what? Actually, no, we don't, because I don't think a lot of people really understand. And I'm leading up to something, just so you know, so I'm not just talking about my salary, and I'm not even going to talk about my salary, because it changes from morning to night. It's different all the time, it seems like it. So, but there's something that we're leading up to today that I'm leading up to that we're going to be discussing a little bit. So I want to tell you though, yes, you see it's on a buyer seller side, you see a check written out to the buyer broker. But what you don't see is all the other things that, we're paying for. And these are just a quick thing. I just wanted to make people stop and think for a minute, because, it's like, maybe we don't want to have you do this. And it's like, there's a lot of reasons why you do, especially with the negotiations, understanding what's going on in the market, how things, things to ask for. I know I'm watching my husband, he's going through an estate sale right now, and he obviously had no clue what to ask for. The attorney that he's dealing with had no clue what he was doing, in my personal opinion. I'm not going to say names, but anyway, but there was a lot of things that should have been happening with with the sale or the transfer of this property that were being left out. So again, it's having somebody who's knowledgeable who can make sure that they're looking out after your rights. So anyway, it's things like running your business. I mean, if you're running any businesses, the things that you would need, your phone, your internet, those kinds of things, your paper, whatever. Then we have our transportation costs, because obviously we're driving all over, meeting our clients and showing properties, and so it's gas, it's wear and tear on our vehicles, that kind of stuff. On top of that, we have licensings, we have association fees. Part of being in the MLS, you also have big fees for that. So you're paying for that, your National Association of Realtor fees. There's associations for that to be included in that group. And then you have all your C credits and that kind of things you have to, in your education, that you have to keep up and current every year. So all those things are part of our costs. We do our own, most brokers, I should say, not all of them, but I'm sure there's some companies, brokerages out there that may help do some advertising and marketing. But for the most part, most brokers I know do, that's on them. And so they are paying for their own. So, as you know, advertising costs are very expensive. So there's that. We obviously have to pay our taxes just like the rest of the world does. We have to withhold that, when we get the money and keep it aside so we can make sure that it gets paid at the end or the beginning of the year, however which way you look at it. And also, a lot of companies have medical plans. Well, if you're a solo broker, you're a business, you're your own personal business owner. So a sole proprietorship, however you say that, sole owner, whatever. Anyway, so you have to, if you want medical insurance, you have to pay for out of pocket. And if you've ever looked into what a cost of an individual plan is, it's outrageous. So, I mean, most of them are, but by yourself, it's even more so. So there's those. And then on top of that, all that, we have brokerage fees, which means, there's either a desk fee that you're paying for. Sometimes it's both, or sometimes it's part of your commission. A lot of them take, 50 to 10% of your commission when you make it, or you have a team if you're on, and they take some of your percentages. So, you're also paying those different entities as well, those brokerages as well. So when you actually get down to the bottom line and how much time and stuff you put in, it's really just pretty much an average salary for, and then how much you really hustle and move, obviously that depends on it. So yes, we do a lot. Yes, there's a lot of expenses, but let's talk about why I'm bringing up commissions, because there's actually a lawsuit which took place in Illinois, and it's affecting pretty much our whole entire nation right now. And this was about listing brokers that they were making, that they were requiring that their sellers pay for the buyer's broker's commission. And some of the sellers were saying, you know what, we don't want to do this. Unfortunately, the forums across the country, for the most part at that time, this was just a couple of years ago, they were all pretty much just, you're paying this, you're paying this side, and this is what you're doing. And there really wasn't an option to negotiate. And so there was a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and several brokerages, really big brokerages out there. And I'm sure there's probably still more to come, unfortunately, but that were, that they took them to court and that they won and said, we want to be able to negotiate that. And if you're hearing a buzz sound, it's my mom. I think she's either my mom or my daughter's mowing. So one of them is. But anyway, it's a valid point, because, you can negotiate on your closing cost fees. You can negotiate on getting a home inspection. You can negotiate on your possession date, or how much earnest money you put down, or what day you want to close. There's so many negotiable things. Why not that? It's a valid point, and I totally agree with it 100%. What was cool though is that our Northwest MLS here actually was one of the forefront people as far as coming up with new forms, and they came up with a form that said that it is more negotiable. Like, if you were to pay, like as a seller, do you want to pay, obviously what's the rate you and your broker is going to agree on? That's the first thing. So what is that percentage? Then the next thing would be, what do you want to do for the buyer side? And I'm going to go back to that point, because there's a really important, because most people are going to say, I don't want to pay them anything, let somebody else pay it, right? But I'm going to go back and touch on that at the end on why that's a really important thing to think about. So, but for right now, let's just say, I don't want to pay anything, or I want to pay 2%, or I want to pay 3%. And so if it was somebody who had an unrepresented buyer, so like for instance, if I was representing you and I did an open house as your listing broker, and I had a person who came in who wanted to put an offer on and they were unrepresented. Maybe I don't want to do a dual agency, and that's where your brokerage is on both the buying and the selling side. It could be a brokerage, so it could be two different people, but in the same brokerage, or it could even be the same broker doing both sides of it. I usually don't like to do those. I usually try to refer them out. But again, let's just say that was part of it. So or maybe I didn't want to do it at all. So I said no. And, but still, I'm still facilitating all that paperwork for both sides. And I'm not necessarily advising the other side, but I'm also making sure that, they're filling out their forms when they need to, and I'm kind of managing it all. So I might negotiate my salary or my commission a little bit. So there's always different factors that the MLS is added into these forms for the sellers. What's cool now is that they're also giving the buyers some options on negotiating their commissions or what they're paying as far as commissions too. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go forward. So let's talk about the buyers a little bit. So by beginning of next year, if brokers haven't already started doing this, they will be doing it. When you sit down to give any type of real estate advice to a buyer, you will be required to be under contract with that buyer. Like, you will talk about your commissions, what that's going to look like for the buyer. So, the buyer might say, I'll pay you, X percent of the purchase and sale. And they are responsible for that. So what happens, again, let's say that the seller, let's say that they offered, I'm just going to say, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I can't say commission, so I'm trying to be very careful on how I word this. So let's just say that X is less than Y. Okay. So let's say that the seller has, or the buyer has offered Y, so the more expensive percentage, and seller is only going to offer X. So obviously there's money that is due to the buyer broker that they're going to have the buyer is actually going to have to come up with. There is some other things here though too, which is now giving the buyer the option to say, you know what, if yes, I can cover this buyer broker fee, but if there's something that's offered that's above that, I don't want to see it. And again, I'm going to pull that in at the very end. So hold on to that thought for just a second though. So they might be saying, hey, you know what, I can kind of do this, or I can come up with some of this, but, a certain percentage or a certain, like half a percentage or whatever to kind of cover up that difference. But they might just say flat out, I don't want to look at those homes. If I don't, like if they're offering 0, for instance, I need to have, some money to come in to help pay for your fees. So, I don't want to look at those homes. They can also negotiate what happens if the seller offers more. So for instance, again, in that situation, let's say that, buyer's offering his broker X percent, which is a smaller percent, seller's offering Y, there's, let's just say a 0.5% their difference. How would that get split up? And so there's actually a forum and a discussion about that where, hey, if you got it, buyer broker, you did a great job. I want you to have that extra money, which would be super sweet. Thank you so much. Or, I want to use it for my closing costs as a buyer, or, I want to use it for whatever. So those are all negotiable now, which for the buyer and the seller, which I think should happen. But it gets a little interesting sometimes. Okay. But definitely it's a good thing. Okay. So what does that mean? So obviously I just told you the answer there. So the short answer is it really helps both the buyer and seller negotiate on commissions that they're paying to their broker and the buyer's broker and how that's going to work. And I kept saying, I'm going to bring it back to the end, and I'm going to bring it back to the end. I'm going to talk to you about why this could be an issue. So the thing is you probably heard this before too, is a lot of the buyers have a lot of credit, but they don't have a lot of cash on hand. The last couple of months has been a little different because there's been cash sales coming in. People just been throwing cash at homes They go up way over asking price. It was, I mean, it was crazy. It was like the Wild West out there. It was there were so many crazy things happening out there. It was unbelievable. Foregoing inspections, all that stuff. With that being said, though, in it going back to a regular market where, people are a little bit more careful about how they're spending their money. There's not maybe that I mean, our rates, everything's gone up expensive. So, maybe it's not quite as, hey, I can just throw it at the house and not a big deal, right? A lot of people have credit, but they don't have cash. So if you're trying to bring in whatever percentage for your broker, your buyer broker, you're responsible for that because you are signing a contract, a legal contract that's holding you responsible for paying that broker. Plus, you have to come with closing costs and you're coming with the down payment on your loan. It can get pretty expensive out there. And on the reverse side of it, sellers, and this is for you, again, yes, I don't want to pay anything because, I mean, who wants to pay? But on the other hand, if the seller or if the buyers are saying, I don't want to see the property because we can't, I don't want to, because you don't want to negotiate on that. I mean, they can raise the price a little bit. They can do, there's things that just like with closing costs that we're able to do a little bit as far as negotiation. I was hoping Kerri would be here to kind of talk maybe about some of her ideas on the lending side, but you might be, as a seller, if you don't offer anything, you might also be limiting the number of buyers that you get into your property who might make you an offer. And, it could be a really, really good offer too. So there's kind of two sides to think about. But the main thing is it's, buyers are going to have to come up with more money if those sellers aren't paying for it. And, and that's a lot of cash coming out right up front. So if you're going to buy, it's probably a good time to jump in and do it sooner than later. Make sure you're saving if you're planning on buying, because you're definitely going to need to be able to, have that funds for those three different, your buyer broker's commissions, your closing costs, and your down payment. There are some down payment assistance programs, and maybe we'll bring Kerri back next week and she can talk a little bit about those. But, there are some things that can help out a little bit, but it's still, it's still going to be things that might come out of your pocket up front. So something to kind of look at and watch for. Like I said, things are changing in the real estate industry a little bit. I appreciate you watching. As always, make sure you hit that like, follow, or subscribe button. It always makes me feel better if I get a thumbs up, because at least I know that somebody watched it and you got something from this. I hope you learned something today, and have a great day.